And welcome to the fourth podcast of Jono Talks. Today we have Feliks Zemdegs in the studio, who has a resume which would rival most. By the numbers, he is one of the world's fastest speed cubers. Feliks currently holds 8 different world records and previously held an astonishing 12 world records. To add in a sweetener, these world records involve not just a standard cube, but cubes more than triple the size of an average cube, alongside single-handed solves. Feliks has over 98,000 subscribers on YouTube, of which I am one, with 8 videos separately reaching over 1 million views. Needless to say, it's a privilege to have him on the podcast. Thanks, Feliks, for coming by.
No worries. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, all good. So just before we start, this is the first podcast we're doing on video. So I might need to tinker with the positioning, but thanks for allowing me to do it. So let's get straight into it. So obviously, a teenager from America, Lucas Etter, holds the 3x3 Rubik's Cube record of 4.9 seconds. Do you feel envious about that?
No, not at all.
Why not?
Not really. So I've held the record in the past, and it sort of keeps it interesting having, a good level of competitiveness at the top with lots of different people beating the records at the top. So, if I've got it, cool. But if he's got it, that's all right as well. Yeah,
so you held the... So with the 3x3 Rubik's Cube record, was your last world record 5.56 seconds?
So that was... My record was 5.66.
Okay.
Which was... I did that in 2011. Which was then broken in 2013 by Mats Valk from the Netherlands with a 5.55. And then it was broken twice this year by 2 Americans. And 4.90, have you ever got below that out of competition? Yeah, I generally, in a practice session, I would beat that maybe once or twice if I do, 100 solves. But that's doing 100 solves. Whereas in competition, you only get, 5 solves a round equals 15 solves in a competition.
Yeah.
Add in nerves and stuff like that. Yeah. It's 4.90 is very, very tough to beat.
Yeah. So do you perform better in competition or out of competition?
Definitely out of competition.
Definitely out of competition.
For the events that I really care about and that I'm really focusing on, I tend to feel quite nervous in competitions. It's funny because, for other events, there's other different puzzles that they do at these competitions, and generally in competition I'm able to focus more and probably do better in the events that I'm not nervous in. Whereas if I'm nervous, I'll do way worse than at home.
Yeah. But when you look at a 3x3 Rubik's Cube, I think we have it here. Is there such a thing as a... because I notice when before you solve a Rubik's Cube, you get some time to inspect it, kind of thing. Is there such a thing as a lucky solve? If you get a certain... positioning of the cube, if that makes sense? To a degree. So certainly, if you have a scrambled Rubik's Cube, some states initially can look a little bit... some states can look a lot easier than others. But ultimately, the difference isn't too much for the 3x3 from a starting position perspective. So you can have solves, it's hard to put a metric on this, but you can have a solve which is 20% easier, 20% harder than another one. But then, so as you're doing the solve, you do a certain number of steps, and what can happen sometimes is you get to the final step, and normally, you need to do some moves to solve it. But what can happen sometimes is you get to the last step of your solve, and it's automatically solved, which cuts, 1.5 seconds off your solve time, which, it's a rarity, but it can happen. Stuff like that. So there's a little bit of luck involved as well. Yep. And so how much would you train on a given day? Do you train more as a competition approaches?
I definitely would practice a lot more before a competition. The thing with speed cubing is you don't really tend to lose that much touch. If you don't practice for a month, which I definitely do for some of my other events, because I do sort of 6 or 7 main events that I have in addition to the 3x3. So some of them, it's hard to practice all of them constantly. So if I don't touch one puzzle for a month, I can come back to it, and within a day or two, I'm back to my normal times. But as to how much I actually practice depends a lot on, how busy I am with uni work, that sort of thing. And I sort of see it as doing two types of practice. So one sort of practice is where I would just pick up a cube at home and just play around with it and do whatever. And the second type is like sitting on my computer with a timer and do like sessions and take averages and stuff like that. So in terms of just picking up a cube, I'd probably, do that half an hour a day, just if I'm around the house watching TV, eating dinner, or not with my family, but if I'm eating dinner, just by myself, I'll just be cubing or on my phone or whatever. So half an hour a day. And then when you're talking about sessions, I would do, it really varies. On a normal week, maybe 2 or 3 sessions a week, between 1 and 2 hours. And then leading up to competitions, I might go, 4 or 5 sessions a week. It really depends on how I feel.
Yeah, and also I was reading in the Huffington Post an interview they did with you. You mentioned that a competitor had like a sports psychologist train with them or something for an upcoming competition. I found that really interesting. What was the purpose of that?
The purpose of that is to obviously control your nerves. I suppose the thing with speed cubing is that it's definitely not like at all like normal sports in that, say if you're looking at football or, some physical sport, you sort of, if you have this nervous energy, you can take it out by, running, or there's a way to sort of take it out. Whereas with speed cubing, you have to sort of be relaxed. Otherwise, if your fingers are shaking or whatever, that can, adversely affect your time. So it's very important to be relaxed. Whereas if you're doing, normal sport, you don't really need to be relaxed. Your nervous energy you can manifest it into something else. Whereas with speed cubing, you've got to be calm. And so I suppose that was his rationale in getting a sports psychologist to help me out with that.
So have you ever adopted any kind of external methods like that, apart from just solving like a Rubik's Cube, like say like meditation or...
No, not really. I've tried like different things at certain competitions, like sort of trying to get like a routine before my solve. So like I would sit down at the table, take a couple of deep breaths and then start the solve, which, I think that is pretty much what I do,
Do you do any visualization? So like do you, some like sport people do this, so you kind of visualize how you're going to go in the actual competition. You visualize like breaking a world record. Do you do that?
Yeah, so I've done a little bit of that. So before the World Championships in 2013 and 2015, what I sort of did was, so in the finals you have 5 solves, and what I sort of did was, pretended like I was in the finals in my head, and sat down and did my 5 solves in sort of, and trying to sort of replicate that atmosphere. So I would put headphones in with sort of ambient noise from like a Rubik's Cube competition and like applause and stuff like that. And I'd try to pretend that I was like sort of there. And, I would check myself, okay, I'd do my 5 solves and see my average. And, if I got, say, a 7.7 average, that would probably win a world championship. So I'd be pretty happy with that and sort of rank those, see how I'd go over time.
Absolutely. Did it help, like simulating the actual environment?
I think so. I'm not too sure.
Hard to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and what started your interest in Rubik's cubing?
Right. So when I was 12 years old at the start of high school, it was on the weekend sometime, and I came across a bunch of videos about Rubik's cubes on YouTube. And so there were videos on how to solve the Rubik's cube, videos of people speed cubing in under 10 seconds, which I thought was pretty incredible. I'd played with the Rubik's cube before and never really got anywhere. Couldn't even get a side or anything. So to see people solving in under 10 seconds was pretty incredible. So I decided to go and buy a cube and learn how to solve it off that YouTube tutorial.
And have you done any like YouTube tutorials? Like have you done some YouTube tutorials for yourself and your audience?
I've done. I'm pretty lazy with this sort of thing. So I've made a few sort of videos where I go through like how I solve like an example solve. So I would get a scrambled cube and say first I would do this, then this, then this, as opposed to like a general method. And then I've I've got a few like sort of advanced tips and tricks videos, but nothing really for anyone learning how to solve the cube. Just because there's a lot of good videos already out there, and I'm lazy.
No. So, and do you kind of innovate any moves, or do you? Is it just about kind of just with these methods, just like trying to do it as quickly as you can, or do you innovate certain things?
Not actively. I don't actively look for ways to like make the method more efficient because, I mean, speed cubing, modern day speed cubing's been around for sort of 10, 12 years, and a lot of the methods and ideas for solving the cube have pretty much been fully developed.
Yeah.
So to try and like to do different things, to try and like come up with new methods and stuff, it's probably pretty fruitless.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so when you started like Rubik's cubing as just like a hobby, was it like how deep of a contrast is it to when you first started in terms of popularity and up until now?
So like you mean the difference in sort of competitor levels and worldwide? So I started in 2008. So back then, I wouldn't be able to tell you how many competitors there have been at competitions, but I know now, I think it's definitely over 40,000 people have ever done an official like competition for the 3x3 cube, and definitely over the last sort of 2 years, there's been a sort of a big increase. It's definitely not mainstream by any means, but you see, you're seeing a lot of growth worldwide in speed cubing, not only in terms of numbers at big competitions, but in terms of like the globalization.
Yes.
So you're seeing all these competitions in lots of new countries around the world, which is cool.
Would you attribute some of that popularity to yourself and other elite cubers, like on YouTube, just starting out and like breaking these world records? Has it always been like popular to break records like in that like even like less than a decade ago?
So I suppose the holy grail of the world records is the 3x3 single world record, and all those go viral on YouTube. They're all over Facebook and everything like that. So I suppose that's where a few people might see it and become interested. A lot of people would probably just see it and dismiss it as something they could never do, but anyone can learn how to solve a cube with enough patience and practice.
Yeah. It looks. Do you need to have kind of like a really good memory, or what type of skills do you have to solve a Rubik's cube?
To solve a cube, there's nothing like anyone can solve it if they have a little bit of patience. But in terms of getting, so I think anyone with enough practice and learning the right things can get down to 15, 12 seconds. But to beyond that, I suppose the main skills involved in solving is stuff like pattern recognition, spatial awareness. So that's like seeing how things move like around the cube, and for example, I've got this piece here. If I'm solving these other two pieces here, if I solve these pieces over here in one way, what will the end result of the piece over there be after I've solved these two? And it's stuff like that where it gets a little bit confusing.
So how do you think over that, like in terms of like thinking of the end result when you're doing the cube, like we'll just say the 3x3 Rubik's cube. Are you thinking as you're doing it, or do you think as when the inspection time?
Inspection time is where you do most of your thinking. Like, I suppose with anything, you don't want to be thinking about what you're doing while you're doing it. Like, for example, I don't know, I play a little bit of golf, right? The more you think about, like, if you're swinging a club, the more you think about all the different things involved with the golf swing, the higher likelihood is that you'll, like, hit the ball sideways. Whereas the idea is that you practice all these things, and then once you go to solve it, you've practiced this enough that it's all sort of automatic. And you're not like actively thinking.
So it's important to get that into that transition where you're thinking into it's like kind of autonomous, like like what you're moving, like
that just takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
And just getting really, really familiar with the cube.
How long did it take for you to get into that position where things became like second nature?
It's a constant process. So I think like if you learn something new, it takes you a little while to sort of implement it into your solve, and then it becomes automatic. So it's constantly sort of learning, practicing so it becomes automatic, and then you learn something new, practicing so it becomes automatic, and then you can continue learning. So even now I've learned, the last week or so I've learned a few new, what are called algorithms, maybe 10 or 15, and still they're not automatic at all. So it's just a matter of time and practicing those, maybe a couple more weeks before they become automatic.
Yeah, and is it? We were mainly talking about the 3x3 Rubik's Cube, but obviously there's I've seen you on YouTube and other YouTubers, or speed cubers rather. They solve like much more. So I don't know what the official term is like. Is it let's say like 7x7 cubes and like whatnot? Is it hard to transition to like a bigger cube or?
Yeah. So the next level up from the 3x3 is the 4x4 cube, and learning that one requires a few like different methods and new things to learn in order to learn how to solve it. And then the 5x5 gets a little bit more complicated, but once you know sort of the basic principle for solving bigger cubes, starting with a 5x5, I think if you know how to solve a 5x5, you'd be able to solve any cube larger than that, but it just takes more time.
Yep, absolutely. And when you first started out competitively and started getting noticed by the Australian media, did you feel that? Did you feel any pressure to succeed in competitions, knowing that you were like one of the elite cubers? Or
no, not really. Not too much. I suppose all the pressure that I'd feel is probably just put on by myself, and like just like expectations, like if I'm going to a competition, even so last month I went to a competition and I was like, okay, I want to get average under 7 seconds, and I got close a couple of times, but like that was sort of my goal for the competition. But and it wasn't that I felt nervous because people watching or anything. It was just like, I just want to do well for myself.
Yeah, but what do you hear when, I mean, you've been dubbed by the Australian media sometimes as like the Usain Bolt of like of like speed cubing. Do you kind of do you feel any pressure with that, or
no,
not at all?
Not really.
Just taking your stride.
Yeah, well, because a lot of the mainstream media stuff, comes and goes. There's a few articles here and there, but it's not like say AFL or actual sport where media are constantly critiquing players or anything.
Yeah.
The Rubik's Cube stuff is like, here's an interesting article about some guy from Melbourne. Yeah.
It only comes up like once every so often.
Yeah, no one's going to be like writing about, bad performances about Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. Absolutely. Has the media attention increased though, or has it stayed not just with you, just in general, the speed cubing as a sport?
I think it's stayed pretty constant. Even though it's growing, I think it's always going to be sort of a cool news piece.
Yeah,
but if you're seeing it all the time, then it will sort of lose its specialness. I don't know.
And have you ever done like, apart from Australian media, have you ever done like media overseas or anything like that?
Yeah, a bunch of stuff here and there. Like just whenever you're at competitions, or particularly like at big competitions, there'll be a few journalists here and there, or like a film crew or something like that. So generally, I'm requested to like answer some questions, whatever. That's fine.
And so where was the last competition you went to overseas?
Last overseas competition was in Guangzhou, China. Yeah, that was in October 2015.
And was that like a Rubik's Cube championship?
Yeah, so it was the first ever Chinese championship.
Oh wow!
So I suppose up to that point, they had this sort of big annual Chinese competition every year, but didn't have a title. It was called like Guangzhou, Rubik's Cube competition or something like that. And this year they decided, okay, we're going to do something big. We're going to have the first Chinese championship. We're going to invite 4 international competitors, and make it really big. And it was the second biggest competition ever held with, I think, about 550 people.
Oh yeah. And what was the biggest competition?
Worlds 2013, which had over 600. That was in Las Vegas.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And which was your favorite like destination? Sorry, did you have like a particular preference?
So like the favorite place I've been to.
Yeah.
So I went to South Africa at the end of 2014 for a couple of competitions over there, and I had a really fun time. I really liked, particularly Cape Town. I was there for a week and a little bit, and just exploring the city. You know, we were sort of shown around a little bit, and we went. So me and Mats, the guy from the Netherlands, who at the time had the world record, we were shown around South Africa, shown around Cape Town. You know, they took us to schools where we did demonstrations and stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun. And then after that, like I went on a safari trip, sort of by myself with a tour group, and that was pretty sick. So in terms of like the coolest country, yeah, I thought the South Africa trip was pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you? Yeah. So do you consider that like as a bonus? Like apart from like the actual Rubik's Cube competition, you get to like travel around the world, experience like different things.
Yeah, that's a huge bonus of speed cubing. Not just like traveling around the world, but meeting lots of people as well from around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about airplane travel? Are you scared of it, or you're okay with?
I'm fine with airplane travel. I know the statistics. I don't know what they are, but like
no, it's less dangerous, obviously. Than cars.
Many times less dangerous.
Yeah.
And I don't travel that much. Like I would go overseas, 2 or 3 times a year, maybe 2 times a year even. Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to ask you is getting a bit technical, but what kind of? I was wondering if you could just show us like what kind of moves you would need to do to solve like a 3x3.
Right. So the method. I suppose the method that I use is called the Cfop method, which is sort of the main advanced method that the majority of speed cubers use. And from that sort of fundamental, it's called Cfop. It's an acronym which stands for more acronyms, actually. So it's called CROSS, F2L, OLL, PLL. As we don't have too much time to go into it, but basically what I do is solve the Rubik's Cube in layers. So I start from the bottom. I build the first layer, second layer, and then the third layer. So the first step is called the cross.
Yep.
So basically what I'm doing there is building a cross, building 4 edge pieces around a centerpiece. And then from there, what I do is fill in 2 pieces at a time, sort of around this cross. And this is all done intuitively.
Yep.
Build the first 2 layers like that. And then for the last layer, you have to use what are called algorithms, which sort of get you from one state to another. And there's so many different sort of optimizations and sub-methods and stuff like that. But basically, what you would do most of the time is make the whole top layer yellow like this.
Oh, yeah.
With one algorithm. And then move the pieces around with another algorithm.
So, who created these? Like, have you researched like the history behind the Rubik's Cube and how they came up with these methods?
Not too much.
Yeah.
It's actually I'm not knowledgeable at all on who created this method. It used to be called the Friedrich method, named after Jessica Friedrich, who invented it in. I wouldn't even be able to tell you. But then there was doubts as to the initial creator of the method, and so people just use the term CFOP now, which is a general term, not named after anyone.
Yeah. And how long does it take? Because I assume when you start out, you're kind of trying maybe perhaps different methods just to see which one's best for you. Are you at that stage now where you know which methods? Is there like a go-to methods for like the elite or just any speed cuber in general?
So in terms of like the CFOP method is the method that I use every single time.
Oh, okay.
Right. But like a Rubik's Cube is scrambled completely differently every single time.
Yeah.
There's, 43 quintillion different possible...
Quintillion, like that's that much.
Yeah, I don't know how many zeros that is. But
yeah.
it's a ridiculous amount of possible permutations of a Rubik's Cube. So, you're using the same fundamental process every time, but the moves you do are going to be completely different every time. If that makes any sense. So like I'm doing the cross every time. I do the first two layers every time. I make the whole top face yellow and then permute it every time. But the way I do that is going to be different on each, on individual solves.
So, and does that still imply with those 6x6 cube, 7x7?
Not quite. So for the bigger cubes, what you sort of do is build. So for the 3x3, you build from the bottom up. For the larger cubes, you build from the inside out.
Okay.
I won't get into too much detail.
No, that's right. I can see it gets quite complicated. And so what was your fastest ever solve with a 3x3 Rubik's cube out of competition or in competition? In
competition, my best now is 5.39.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So nearly half a second off the world record.
Yeah, 4.9. Yeah.
Which actually that ranks me fourth at the moment in the world.
And the second rank is that Colin Burns?
Second rank is Keaton Ellis, another American. He has 5.09, and then Colin Burns 5.25, which used to be the world record.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Me.
but you still think that eventually you might be able to beat the 4.9?
4.9 is still beatable for a few people, like at least 10 or 20 people, I think.
Yeah. And is Lucas Eder the one who... I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his surname wrong. Is Lucas is he kind of one of the up-and-coming speed cubers that everyone's... Or is there more than a couple?
Yeah, I would say he's definitely... He's been around for a little while. He's been very quick for a little while, but getting the world record, that's going to put your name out there. And
yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. He's pretty young. I think he's 14 or maybe 15 by now. Yeah.
And so you hold 8 world records at the moment. Is that correct?
I think so.
If we speak over, yeah.
I don't count.
You don't count. Yeah. So what types of cubes are they? So,
right. So for the Rubik's cube, you've got two categories. You've got the single solve, and you've got the average solve. So the single is the fastest solve in any competition ever, just the one-off, whereas the average is the fastest average. So you do your 5 solves in the round. They get rid of the best and the worst, and they take the average of the middle 3.
Okay.
And so I've got the average world record at 6.54. And then I've got world records in the 4x4 up to the 7x7. If I can go through them individually. So 4x4 I have the single, but not the average. 5x5 I have both. 6x6 I have the average, but not the single. 7x7 I have both. And I have the one-handed single world record.
One-handed? How do you do that? What?
With your left hand.
Left hand?
No. So basically what you do is sort of...
Is that just a 3x3?
Yeah, the 3x3 one-handed, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you grip the cube and sort of use your fingers to turn it like so.
And do you do any... Because I assume to get really quick, it involves some finger dexterity. Do you do any particular finger exercises?
No.
Or is that not a...
No.
Yeah, it's more just about practice. And,
yeah, it's just doing the cubing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of recognition, do you get recognised a lot? In Melbourne or...
No.
Not really?
No, cubing's not... It's not mainstream at all. That's a good thing as well. In competitions, obviously get recognised, and, at Rubik's Cube competitions, pretty much everyone would know me. But then you can sort of leave that and just go home and everything's normal. It's fine.
Yeah, that's a really good advantage. If you're an AFL player, it kind of stays with you. But
yeah, I don't know what it'd be like to be actually famous.
Yeah.
It might be annoying. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what other interests outside of cubing do you have? You mentioned golf. Are there any other hobbies that you have which assist in Rubik's cubing?
Not really. I don't really have anything that lines up with that. I've never been a gamer at all.
For instance, do you do any memory games or
No.
Not really?
No. So in terms of outside interests, I play a little bit of golf. I love AFL, but just following it and watching it. I don't really play.
Yeah. I saw you once. You taught Dyson Heppel.
Yeah.
I
didn't teach him
You didn't
anything.
teach him? Yeah.
that was a huge highlight. So I was invited by Essendon, which is the team that I follow, down to their family day to do sort of a demonstration. And yeah, Dyson was the captain this year, for anyone who doesn't know. He's captain for the second half of the year. Him and a couple other players sort of had a Rubik's Cube challenge. Yeah. And so they were up there trying to solve their cubes, and they just brought me up and solved it in like 7 seconds.
That's good. And they must have been like, wow.
Yeah.
For the listeners who don't know, because I assume like people who follow Felix, they might be from like around the world. They might not know what AFL football is. You can Google it. I don't know how to explain it. Kind of like, I don't know. It's a bit like, it's hard to describe. But Dyson Heppel's well known in the AFL. And when you do you still enjoy speed cubing as much as you did when you started out? Is it like with the competition? Do you feel we've already talked about pressure, but how is the enjoyment level gone?
Yeah, it's pretty constant.
Constant.
Yeah, like I still really enjoy it, and just Rubik's Cube it's really fun to play with generally. And then when you add in, all the stuff about competitions, meeting people, traveling, and like the competitive side of things, improving at something when you practice is like pretty satisfying.
Yeah.
You sort of see that, when you do hard work and put effort into something, you see sort of gains.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool thing about speed cubing is you can track that,
Yeah.
If you practice for, an hour a day for a month, you'll get better.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
But because you solve it so quickly, I assume that improvements would be very minimal.
Yeah. So, for example, over the first, let's say, 4 years of my cubing, I first learned how to solve it, and I got down to 8 seconds.
Uh-huh.
And the next 4 years, I got from 8 seconds to 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'm not improving that much.
Yeah.
But there's lots of different events to improve in as well. So say for some of the bigger cubes, my times are still improving.
Oh, yeah.
But for the 3x3, not much.
Not much, yeah. And I noticed that what I found fascinating is some people solve Rubik's Cube just like blindfolded. Just like, can you do that? Are you able to?
Yeah, I can do that. I don't really practice it that much. It's a lot harder than normal solving. And even like the guys who have the blindfolded records, far more impressive than normal records, I think.
Are they able to transition out of the blindfold and still do really well?
Yeah, some of them. But you find that in speed cubing, a lot of people are sort of specialists in that they'll practice specific events to become world class at them. Because I think there's 17 different. Don't quote me on that. 17 different events in the World Cube Association, which is like the governing body. And so you'll get people who specialize in blindfolded solving, specialize in, big cubes, specialize in other sorts of puzzles. Because to try and practice everything and become world-class at everything is pretty much impossible.
Yeah, I could imagine, because there's so many different types. Yeah.
And there's different skills, and just because you're good at this, the 3x3 doesn't mean you'll be good at, other puzzles necessarily.
But I'm just trying to wrap my brain around how they could do it, or how you could do it blindfolded.
Right.
So, like what? Because you can't see like a cross or anything.
No. So you memorize the cube beforehand, obviously.
Yeah. So you inspect it.
Yeah. And you memorize it. People have different methods to memorizing things, but you would use letters, visual memory, numbers, that sort of thing, to memorize where the pieces are and where they need to go, and then you've got sort of a system by which you convert that memory into actually solving the cube.
Yeah, is that something like that you do? So when you inspect it, do you already know like what kind of moves you need to do?
Not the whole solve by any means. So when I'm inspecting, I normally plan for the first 8 to 12 moves, and then a whole solve is normally about 60 moves. So after I execute those initial 8 to 12 moves, I have to sort of keep looking ahead as to what's coming next and do more moves and keep tracking, where the pieces are going and what I'm going to solve next.
And
so I only plan the start in inspection. Yeah.
But you still do it so quickly, like under.
Yeah, that's the. that's the key, I suppose, is being able to not stop and, whilst you're solving something, look ahead as to what you're solving next.
Do you ever have you ever made a mistake and then you have had to quickly readjust?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it a real...
That's an art as well.
Yeah, so
it's trying to sort of minimize damage.
Minimize damage, yeah. How do you go in competition with that? When you're trying to...
Probably not well.
Probably not well.
Because if you make a mistake, and particularly if you're under pressure in the finals of a big competition, you make a mistake, that's just going to compound the pressure. And,
yeah. Is that amongst the elite cubers? Is that kind of the what separates the elite cubers on a given day in a competition?
So separates the elite cubers between themselves or them from the others?
No, between just that select group in terms of speed. What?
Yeah, good question. That's actually a very good question as to what determines. So say you've got 10 guys, they all average 8.5 seconds. Who wins?
Yeah, say with maths or something.
Yeah. Well, pretty much. So a solve time is going to come down to sort of two components. One, it's going to be the number of moves you take, and two, it's going to be how fast you turn. So I suppose it is whoever does the most efficient solutions and turns the fastest. And turning the fastest also is derived from sort of how little you pause as well.
Okay.
So basically, turning fast and coming up with efficient solutions. How do you do that? You've got to be relaxed. You've got to. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. I see you when you solve. You look very focused as you're solving. Is that? Do you feel any nerves as you're solving the cube, or are you just really focused on what you have to do? Do you notice the external variables? So obviously, I assume in these competitions you have an audience of spectators.
Yeah. For the 3x3 cube, because it's such a short thing. For me, it's 7 seconds. I don't really have time to sort of think about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But for the bigger cubes where I'm solving for 1 or 2 minutes, if I'm halfway through the solve and it's really good solve, my heart rate might increase a little bit. Okay, if I don't mess up and keep going really well, this could be some sort of record, and then that slows me down.
Yeah, absolutely. And what advice would you give to speed cubers who either want to first of all learn how to solve a Rubik's cube, and also to potentially those who have already begun how to or learned it how to transition into competition?
Right. So if anyone who wants to learn how to solve the cube, I would just say, look up. Firstly, have a go at it yourself. See how far you can get trying to solve the cube just by yourself. And then once you've spent, a few days, a week, seeing how far you can get, look up a tutorial on the internet to assist you. And then from there, it's just a matter of, finding really good tutorials to learn from, which teach you good habits from the start. So the one I always direct people to, and it's rather old, it's 7 or 8 years old now, but it's by a guy called Bad Mephisto, BADMEPHISTO. He has a YouTube channel, and he's got pretty much just the guide to becoming faster at the cube. Yeah.
Absolutely. And how about for those who want to get into that kind of elite bracket or competition, what do you need to do to get into competition? Is it open to everyone?
Yeah, all competitions are open to everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for those who want to transition into being a really fast speed cuber, would you just recommend keep on practicing?
Yeah.
Are there any typical
so to become
secrets?
Really good?
Yeah.
There's no secrets at all. Everything is pretty much open. No one's going to be hiding new methods or anything like that. It's all pretty open. To become really fast, you need a lot of practice, I would say. You need to make sure everything you do is very efficient.
Yeah.
So, your solutions are efficient. You're not wasting moves here and there by, solving pieces in bad or inefficient ways. And then you need to be able to turn very fast as well. So even some people just naturally can't turn the cube as fast as other people, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's an aspect.
Did it come naturally to you?
Yeah, I think it's definitely.
Yeah. So it was just a matter about learning like the different methods and getting better at them. Yeah. And how long do you think you'll continue cubing for? Because I've read in an interview they did with you, like you mentioned that generally like younger people do it. Do you think you'll be able to, like, because obviously you love it as like a hobby, do you consider doing it in like your 30s, or by then do you think you would have stopped it?
I don't know where it's going to take me at the moment. But certainly like it's something that can keep doing. Like I plan, even because of the people that I've met and stuff, at these World Championships, you're only going to see them, every couple of years. And if these people keep on going, then you're going to go to see your friends.
Yeah.
In terms of competitiveness, so I think I'm still going to be competitive.
Yeah.
If I keep it up, I don't think I'll, drop off and many people will, completely overtake me and I'll be uncompetitive, because I think to get down to 7 seconds is pretty tough for anyone. So, I mean, as long as I still enjoy it and I'm having fun, and as long as I still enjoy it and I'm having fun, then I'll keep competing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So age is not really like a barrier. Do you know like the oldest?
Not really.
Oldest competitor? Or?
I mean, I think there's people in their 90s that have competed at competitions.
Really?
Not like, they saw it in a minute or something like that, but they've gone to a competition.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'd imagine since you're really good at it and you can get under 7 seconds, it could be kind of hard to let it go competitively.
Yeah.
Because you got that competitive edge is like knowing.
And I have no reason to. It's even if I'm, becoming less competitive, there's no reason in saying, I'm just going to retire now and, never do it again, just because it's a lot of fun. It's lots of really good people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And do you recommend that when you're traveling competitive, do you have any superstitions when you're about to solve a cube, or did you have anything along those lines?
No.
Like in inspection time, do you need a certain amount of time to solve a cube?
No.
Or to notice?
Not really. One thing I would say is, so I have this hoodie, like it's an orange hoodie that I've worn. I used to wear it at lots of competitions, and it sort of became a thing. Like, Felix is wearing his orange hoodie. It's a sort of a good luck sign.
Good luck, yeah.
So I think the last time I wore the orange hoodie was at the 2015 World Championship Finals.
Yeah.
So it worked well then, but I don't think I've won at a competition since then. I have to see.
So yeah.
But that's sort of, I don't actually wear it too often. I'd only wear it on special occasions, but that's the superstition, I reckon.
Absolutely, yeah. And so you mentioned before that kind of speed cubes, they kind of stick to one method. Is there anyone in particular that really impresses you, not in terms of speed, but just how they solve a Rubik's Cube?
So I can give shout-outs here?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
In terms of how they solve it. So there's a guy, he's not very fast at all, but his name is Rob Stewart. He averages 18 seconds or something like that. But some of the solutions he posts online are 30 moves, 40 moves or something like that for a speed solve, which is, 1/3 less, takes off 1/3 of the moves of normal, regular sort of speed solve, and he does it in 12 seconds. If only you could turn fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's all we have time for. I wanted this to go for about an hour, but because the battery life on the video camera is about to end, I'll have to finish it there. So I'm sorry about that, Felix.
That's fine.
But yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on. This is probably my biggest interview that I've done, certainly. So yeah, thanks Felix for coming by.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
All good.